Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of Office Hours with Cloud Posse, where we're going to meet with Marcin from Spacelift to discuss their new project called Spacelift Intent. It's a project challenging the status quo of IAC, and I'm sure it's going to ruffle a few feathers. But I think Marcin is here to kind of really challenge us to think about what infrastructure as code means, and are we really going to be writing HCL for the next 10 years? So if that sounds interesting, stick around. We're going to have a live Q&A at the end and answer any of your questions. The format of today is relatively informal. I'm going to be interviewing or discussing live here the state of IAC with Marcin, and he's going to bring some really interesting viewpoints to the table. Real quick, I'm the founder of Cloud Posse. My name's Eric. I'm responsible for everything we do around here day to day. Cloud Posse sells AWS reference architectures that get you production ready in just 2 weeks. And if you're curious to learn more about that, just head over to cloudposse.com. So how can you maximize today's session? Well, you can engage as much as you'd like. I suggest you ask questions in the chat since we don't want to disrupt the flow of the conversation. And if you're curious about any of the topics that we have here today, this is a great place to bring those up, especially on the state of IAC. So if you want to join us live in the future, you can always join us by going to cloudposse.com/officehours, where you can register and get a live invite or an invite to our live calls every week. And if you do find any portion of today's session valuable, you'll be able to share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse, where you'll find the recording posted in a few hours. So with that said, let's get into things. Hey, Marcin, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse.
Thank you for having me, Eric, and hello, everyone.
So a few weeks ago, I came across this project. I don't think I even saw the announcement yet for it, and I saw it was called Spacelift Intent. I dug into it a little bit more, and I was mind blown. Actually, maybe not for the good reasons initially, but a little while ago, AWS came out with like this new organization or repository full of bash scripts using the AWS CLI. And I guess that is them thinking differently. And like that just felt like the biggest regression. It was like infrastructure as bash. And I couldn't believe this was like a thing that they were putting out there, other than a veiled disguised attempt to teach LLMs how to use the AWS CLI. And that can't be the future of IAC. So tell me, what is Spacelift Intent and where are you going with this? Why are we having this conversation today?
Cool. Let me give you a technical overview of what it is and what it does, and then I'll get into maybe some philosophy. I'm an engineer, so I prefer to get an architecture understanding of technical details first. I presume most of you here, the viewership is very technical. So let's imagine this is your cloud, right? We have your cloud on one hand. There is some intent, something that you want to do to this cloud, and you're kind of like you want to define it. And then there is a process of getting your intention onto the cloud, onto the remote provider. The way you can do it, there are two ways you can do it. One way you can do it is like a caveman. You go to the AWS console, or you run bash scripts, and you just do things like this. That's not why we're here, right? That's something that we generally, as professionals, would at least raise an eyebrow on. But the second way of doing things, the only other way of doing things, is to go through a rather strenuous process of, and imagine like how many things that go between us and Terraform state are kind of implied. I see it because we're getting people onboarded onto Spacelift every day, people who are relatively new to Terraform. So I kind of get to see what people starting to use Terraform are up against. Let's say I want to provision this 3 buckets properly. What I need to do first is learn one language, HCL. Then I need to discover a provider. I need to learn how to configure it. So I need to learn everything there is about AWS, authentication. Of course, you can do key and secret, but it's probably not the best thing, right? So there's authentication. Then you need to understand how an S3 bucket is wired up. So you need to learn the exact incantation. And it's not only an S3 bucket frequently, there's auxiliary resources that currently, an S3 bucket used to be one resource, now it is not. So
So before
sometimes
you
you
can
need to
even get
learn,
there, you got to create the bucket to store your state or something like that.
you need to create a bucket. And then if you want to play together with someone else, then you need to set up some repo, right? You need to set up GitOps. And then if you want to have like centralized tracking of what's going on, you need to set up CICD, right? So for someone who's just starting, it could be days of work between them and an S3 bucket, right? Of course, the moment they learn how to do it, the loop is getting tighter. But imagine the amount of kind of sometimes ceremony that goes between your like, hey, I just want an S3 bucket, and when it's properly provisioned. And I'll say that the ceremony is very frequently a good thing. I'm not trying to kill Terraform. I think there's a lot of problems with Terraform as a tool or OpenTofu as a tool architecturally. And I think, yes, there is some innovation in this space that needs to happen. But I'm not after that yet. I'm trying to find whether there is a tool, there's something on a spectrum between let's click on things as like a caveman, and let's do something very, very ceremonial. And that's the idea of intent, where what we're doing is with intent, we're still using Terraform providers or OpenTofu providers. But instead of you writing HCL to express those Terraform resources, you're expressing them through an LLM, and let the LLM figure out what it is that you're trying to provision. The LLM will then go and query the provider specification. This is something that we expose as an MCP server. And then it'll show you that, hey, I'm going to create something like this. And in your LLM client, you can say, yes, it looks good. Thank you very much. It'll then discover maybe there are some dependencies on your existing resources, and it'll wire that to existing resources to express dependency trees. And then it'll save the state. And that's where it gets, I think we miscommunicated that badly. We will save the state. So every intent project in the open source version, it has a SQLite, local SQLite database. In the commercial version, we manage the state for you. And that's the beauty of it. You get you get state management. You know what you created, you know why you created it, you get the history, and you can update and you can delete those resources. You can actually export them to HCL as well. You can export them to Terraform. You can get the state and upload it to Terraform. What I'm after here with intent is that prototyping situation where you don't necessarily need to know everything about everything that you're doing. You're just able to get started very quickly and not worry about sometimes the unnecessary ceremony.
Yeah.
That ceremony might become necessary at some point, but my problem was that on a spectrum of let's do things as a caveman, and let's do things like extremely properly, there was nothing. So you either get like a giant hammer, like a Thor's hammer to drive that nail, or you're just driving it with your forehead. There was nothing else, right? It's stupid, and that was very powerful. And sometimes you don't need Thor's power to drive in the nail, right? And that's what we're trying to get with intent.
So that state that you're writing is still Terraform compatible state in whatever backend you have, or is it a custom format that you have in SQLite?
Yeah, you can go to the open source repo and see how that works, but it's extremely simple. The way it works is we're sending a request to the provider, and the provider responds with a state. That's how Terraform works. That's how OpenTofu works. We take that state, and Terraform would put it in a flat file. What we're doing is we're putting it into SQLite so that every state entry is managed independently. You don't have to load this whole giant state thing. It's properly indexed, etc., for performance. But there isn't all that much difference. It's the same format, which means that like if you're exporting it, you're able to export the state and you're able to export the HCL, and you get Terraform. You get, well, under the hood we use OpenTofu, but it's the same thing really from an API point of view. Yep.
That's really remarkable. So I get it. So one use case for this, or one way of leveraging this could be maybe rapidly prototyping or building out the overall architecture just through prompting. It actually builds something out that you can touch, feel, manipulate. It's somewhere in between doing ClickOps and the IACPs. And you have the state there. So now you can reconstitute that in a way that's better than having to do like querying the cloud and inferring kind of what it is, because you actually have the state there, and then it's pretty straightforward to generate the Terraform resources from what's in the state file. So yeah, it didn't totally click for me initially, but I was having this conversation with Matt Gowie of Masterpoint yesterday, and we were kind of I really wonder what it is, and then this was his idea, Matt, saying, well, maybe the way it works is you can kind of, work on this in a sandbox, get everything the way you want, and export it at some point if you needed to.
That is one use case. I think there's another very good use case that we found, which is importing things into under Terraform or under like at least some sort of management. So frequently what we're seeing, like initially when we started Spacelift, we thought everyone is in this beautiful world where everything is terraformed and nothing ever fails and everything is just green. So we just help people stay in this green area forever. The reality then kicked in. Like people's runs would fail as a matter of course. Because like, yeah, we got those resources, they're succeeding, the other ones are failing. It's fine, they're supposed to be failing, right? And so you end up having to deal with an imperfect world frequently. And part of the world's imperfection is that we got those 8-year-old accounts on AWS that are not terraformed. We know that they are there, but like, and it's massive problem. It's a massive problem. It's what some people call unmanaged drift, some people call shadow IT, and it's usually
Old man's drift. Never heard that one. That's good.
Unmanaged
drift. Okay,
unmanaged.
I heard old man's drift.
Unmanaged.
Unmanaged drift.
Sorry, it's the
makes sense.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. Terraform and Terraform providers have data sources, and Intent can read data sources. So you can actually use data sources to learn what you have that is not managed by either Intent or Terraform, and bring it first under Intent management, so you get them at least managed somewhere. So you can detect drift, you can refresh them, and then if you want to, because sometimes they're not, like all you need to know is that they're there. You don't necessarily need to ever touch them again. So maybe Terraform would be overkill. But if you want to Terraform them, this is like an intermediate step. And the reason why I think it works is like if you've ever used something like Terraform or a tool that generates Terraform from an account, it generates that massive, like crazy amount of total spaghetti that doesn't really work. Right? And we put a human in loop. We extend the human's capability with an LLM, which is a massive force multiplier, and we get that to import the resources for us. And then, as a human, we kind of give an LLM a direction. Hey, we want to export this, and this resource to Terraform. Maybe they're like interconnected. And then it's good Terraform. And then we export the state.
Refactoring could even be an interesting
exactly.
Like maybe you even have a massive Terraform estate fully built out, but like you realize that you reach the scaling limits of how you architected that. So you can refactor this way, and it can see what the logical relationships are, maybe where the parts where you should break it into smaller pieces. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and then because you're working with an LLM, it's like a massive force multiplier. You don't necessarily need to, like, if you're doing it as a human, then you'd need to be extremely specific about everything. You'd need to run exact commands, but an LLM will take your intent, will take a very high level kind of a direction from you, and it'll produce something that is quite possibly manageable. And you're right, it doesn't have to be on Terraform stuff. You could be working off a Terraform state. You might say, look, don't run things on the cloud. Here's the Terraform state. Here's what I'm managing. I want you to break it up this way, and it'll create intent projects for each one of those pieces, right? And then it can export each one to Terraform, and then the state is already managed. You're not creating anything. You're just importing things from existing state. So it becomes like your kind of like co-pilot, your
Yeah.
superpower with managing Terraform resources.
It makes me think also, and this is, so when in our little chat before we kicked off the call today, we were talking again about system initiative, which is another kind of radical take on how to perceive infrastructure as code. And one of the things that it can do is help manipulate the state to a desired state without actually applying those cloud resources, was my understanding, right? So and I think you're kind of saying the same thing here. We can just be manipulating the state file itself. We don't need to be preoccupied with the language that transforms to that. We can just work with the underlying pieces. Yeah, that's really, really remarkable.
Correct.
And
Correct.
then you can
That's the
visualize
idea.
that, of course, too. And I'm guessing, so tell me, so what's in it for you? Why are you giving away Spacelift Intent?
There are two versions of Spacelift Intent. One version is a single player, which is something that you can use to exactly like do that form of manipulation. And this is something that you do on your own more likely. We're building on top of a lot of open source technologies. We're building on top of OpenTofu. We're building on top of the OpenTofu registry. And as Spacelift, like we've always been of the opinion that if there is something that you can take off the shelf that you don't need to build like a new standard, like let's use an existing standard. Let's be where people are. And if you're trying to, my take at least is if you're trying to show people a new way of doing things, if you're trying to change a paradigm, then paradigms are best changed in the open.
Yeah.
Let people
Meeting
see
them where
how
they're
that
at.
works. Yeah, let people see how that works, right?
Yeah.
Let people maybe tweak it to their needs. I think the best ideas will come not from us; they'll come from outside of the community.
Yeah.
Like we were told about this refactoring like a couple of weeks ago, way after we developed Intent, right? Our first two ideas were prototyping and importing on managed resources, and then someone said, "Ah, we could actually break up Terraform too." And I was like, "Yes, yes, you can, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So on top of that, we built like, this is a local MCP server. So Spacelift Intent is a local MCP server, and we built a commercial version with Spacelift where you get like policy as code so that you can, for example, review changes as a team as they happen. You can put policies that would prevent certain operations from happening. You get state management, so like you can log projects, like you get all of the good stuff that you'd get from a multiplayer tool. Single player, we're happy to give for free. Multiplayer is something that we offer as part of the platform.
Which has been your MO from the beginning with Spacelift, and that so it just makes sense. And how seldom, what's so remarkable to me, and for you and Spacelift is how like often when you come up with a radical idea like this, all right, what's the migration effort going to be, or how are we going to we can't even adopt this. But the fact that you're operating at this state, the fact that Spacelift is already managing the state for a lot of your customers, it's almost like you've just ripped out. Well, another way of looking at this, from my perspective, from a technical perspective, if you know how Terraform works, there's the Terraform core, and then there's the Terraform plugins. And I've always wondered, well, what if you just ripped out the core and just you kept using all the plugins? And some could argue, but that's kind of what Pulumi did, but I don't know, it still felt different. This feels a lot closer to like working with the state directly, just a different controller for working with the state and the providers. And then, yeah, is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's like if you imagine, I think if you wanted to take this idea a bit further, then Terraform is like a robot. Like you can't really like it's kind of self-contained. Like it exposes some interfaces to you, but once it starts, it kind of does it has to finish, right? So that this,
Yeah,
for example, makes refactoring state so difficult because you kind of need to give it very verbose instructions from the beginning, right? It is deterministic, but it's deterministic in a way that kind of prevents large operations or fancy operations, the more sophisticated operations from happening. With intent, I think it's like an exoskeleton. It's like, you have a human inside. You're able to manipulate very quickly. You move the hands. There's a human inside. Human's force is multiplied by the engines, by the LLM, which means that I don't necessarily need to, if I'm inside this giant robot, I don't need to understand how the engines work to move its hand. I express my intent. I kind of like,
yeah.
if you saw Pacific Rim with giant robots with people inside, or like Evangelion, or whatever that is like a human kind of drives this giant machine with the intent, with the moves of its
So,
hand. It's no longer like an autonomous robot.
so is the future of okay, so taking one step back here. So what does it mean for Cloud Posse? We have hundreds of modules. What is the concept of a module in the future world of intent, where you're not really relying on HCL anymore? Is it a prompt library that describes what that module used to do, or what is it?
Let's scope what we're doing properly. Like we're with Spacelift, we're thinking about this as day zero. So it's like this is not kind of like, it's not meant to replace Terraform. It means to supplant it. It means to making it easier to work with Terraform. So for example, what it means for Cloud Posse specifically is that if you're engaging with a customer with a lot of unmanaged resources, then you can use intent to import them under like Terraform management very easily, or you can leave them at like soft management, under soft management with intent, but at least they're not completely like shadow IT, right?
Yeah,
It makes your life easier for those engagements, right? That I do believe that that's the most kind of immediate use case for you as a consultant is.
that's interesting. And
I
this is written in Go,
correct, yes.
and it looks like mostly public packages. So then this can be used as an SDK.
Yes, if you want
Very
to, yeah,
cool.
absolutely. We didn't put anything behind internal, so that you can use that as a library if that is what you're after. We're also we did encourage OpenTofu guys to spin parts of it as an OpenTofu managed packages. So we do depend on some OpenTofu code here. We're actually uh, we're actually getting that out of OpenTofu, and hopefully have OpenTofu use a common library with us. So it is part OpenTofu actually. Um, what is day
Cool.
one then? I think what it means for modules, we are thinking of something as Spacelift, where we can bring the LLM as a force multiplier for actual code. But it's maybe a bit too early to talk about this. Maybe we can meet in like a couple of months and
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Why don't we plan to have a check-in in a few months or in 6 months or something
yeah,
like that? But
yeah.
this has been really interesting, mind-opening, and I'm really happy that you're thinking a little bit outside the box. I wasn't thinking this way at all. So I'd like to pause for a moment and see here. I don't see any questions in the chat. Anybody have any questions for Marcin and Intent?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not
I was
used
just
to
going
it.
to say, for the storage of the bucket or state, when you have multiple collaborators working at the same time, do you get to choose the backend, or is it by default something that's chosen by Spacelift for you?
If you're using the commercial version, we manage it for you. If you're using the open source version, that's a local SQLite thing. If there is a lot of demand to choose backends or use like a different backend, I don't see a problem with that. Technically speaking, all we need is just like a place to store objects. There is nothing fancy here.
Right now, it's only SQLite. You couldn't use a database like Postgres or something like that.
Well, Eric, it's open source. Like you can change it. Like you can put like
yeah,
if you prefer to use Postgres, like who am I to tell you not to open a PR or fork it and use
yeah,
Postgres?
cool.
The reason we
Is the
chose
project
SQLite is that
accepting
it's
contributions?
yeah, absolutely. It's
All right,
open source. It's Apache 2 license. It's yeah.
very cool. Yeah,
The
so
reason we chose SQLite is that it's there. Like you don't need to
yeah,
install
exactly.
anything.
You get and like you said, you're optimizing to get up and running quickly. It's designed to work as an MCP, so you have it running locally, so you really don't need the other thing right now. And then as a commercial offering, you guys have found a way to basically offer this in a multi-user mode on Spacelift. And this is live today. You have customers using it.
Yes.
Cool. When did you go live with it on Spacelift?
2 weeks ago.
So one of the things we were talking about before this was kind of like, I don't know how you framed it so well, but like it was the gist of it, like, are we going to be writing HCL and Terraform for the next 10 years? Are we going to be writing Kubernetes manifests? I don't know about that either. What was the quote that you said that they have at Google?
The Google is the old way is already deprecated. The new one doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we find ourselves here is that, this can't be the end all be all writing HCL code. And now this is an interesting way of doing it. Have you seen any other projects trying to do the same thing?
A couple of things. I didn't necessarily get very deep into that. But there's a project that I saw just today that I think I sent it to you before. It's the Forme. They're using Pickle.
Let me pull that up here. Here we are. Yeah, so I just looking at this, scanning it, I couldn't quickly understand what it's doing or how it works. What was your quick take on
it? I just read a tagline that I did a bit of research. They do some interesting stuff, but I think the tagline is that we've been doing the same thing for 10 years, and I very much agree with that. Right? There hasn't been major innovation in the IEC or infrastructure, programmatic infrastructure management in the last 10 years, and sadly, it is true. And I feel like Terraform is showing some limitations as a CLI that needs to run the refresh the whole world for every single time, right? What the other project that I have in mind that is kind of forward thinking in this area is System Initiative. They break the state into constituent elements, right? And each one can be managed separately. There is a kind of reconciliation loop. There's the obvious other thing is Kubernetes operators, right? And I think in the past we've been operating under like an impression that it's only the what's the name of it? What's the name of the Terraform on Kubernetes? Crossplane.
Yeah.
Crossplane is the only alternative, but now you have really interesting stuff going on. Like you have KRO that got accepted into Kubernetes proper, so you have the concept of like modules, sort of.
Yeah, it's really
and
cool.
the other thing, and the other thing is really cool is KCP. If you have looked at it, right? This is so the KCP. It's like a federation of operators. So instead of running an operator for every single thing, for every single CRD that you need to provision, you can have your KCP operator running, and then KCP connects to remote operators and gives you the capabilities of remote connectors or remote operators, their CRDs locally. So imagine AWS running their own operator that provisions AWS resources. And instead of you having to install an operator per cloud or per resource, you just point KCP at that operator and you get the capabilities locally. So it's like Corba in whatever 90s or whatever, but it's you know, the old is new again, but it's a federation of capability providers. So you combine KCP with KRO and suddenly you have a reasonable story for managing infrastructure on Kubernetes.
Yeah. My hang up has always been like, that's great when Kubernetes is somebody else's problem, but if it's also your problem, it's one more problem I don't want to have.
I'm with you, but like I'm looking at things that people are doing in the industry, right? It's my job sort of to understand like the new paradigms, and I feel like new things are coming up every day now that we haven't seen for 10 years. It's really exciting. It's uncomfortable. It's exciting.
It's a renaissance for what we do.
Yeah.
What was the other project? I can't think of what it was. It got some attention a few weeks ago on Hacker News. It was rethinking kind of the Terraform state backend, where it was like a live graph database.
Paragraph?
State graph?
But it was...
State
oh,
graph.
state graph. But
yeah.
it's vaporware, the way I understand.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, they have said that they're actively working on it, but I mean, the fundamental problem, right, is that state is not abstracted in the Terraform core as it is, right? So if anything, I could see state graph being something pretty awesome together with what we're talking about with intent. Like if intent had a graph database on the back end, couldn't that be interesting? Have you guys given that thought?
It does have it. Like there's, we store edges separately.
Okay.
So there are resources as first-class citizens, but there are also edges, so connections between those resources that are being stored separately. So effectively, what you're getting is a graph database.
Okay. And but with SQLite, you get enough performance on it with that model, data model?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So then, yeah, because one of the cool things in like the demos was kind of visualizing what's going on at any given time. And because it's live updating something like a database, is this what you have also on Spacelift then with the commercial product? More real-time visibility into what's changing?
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna
do you want to share your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop sharing here.
Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, I love bacon.
I love bacon. I do love bacon. So we do have that resource visibility. We like it's live updated. So when you make a change, you get those resources populating here. You get the history as well. Like you see what's happening. Now you see that there's a refresh going on. So there's a reconciliation happening. You do get policies. You do get integrations. Like for example, you can connect AWS resources. You manage your environment, etc. But the resources view is live. It's updated live. So it's similar to I do believe what you're showing.
So for users of Spacelift today, do they have to do anything to take advantage of intent, or they get it automatically?
So currently it's in early access. There is on Spacelift IO/intent, there's a request to join the waitlist. We need to provision resources. We need to like understand how much we need to provision. So we're currently onboarding people one by one. But if you're a paying Spacelift customer and you want to use intents, then just ping us and we'll will do that for you.
Well, so a follow-up on that would be, so I'm a customer of Spacelift, already been using it. All of our stacks are managed by Spacelift. I get accepted into this program you're talking about. Will I auto-magically kind of see my resources there, or is it a separate kind of pool that you opt into what it sees?
So the resources are the resources that you're managing using Intent are under what we call Intent projects. So
Okay.
they're not Spacelift stacks, they're Intent projects. But if you have your Spacelift account connected to like clouds, etc., then you can reuse those connections. So for example, if you have an AEM role that you want to use, and that AEM role is already accessible to Spacelift, then you can say, okay, in this project, I want to use that AEM role. What that means then is you can, for example, query the account for anything that you're not managing with Spacelift. We'll use this role, we'll see what you've got there, and then you can import it using this role under Spacelift management. So they're separate type of projects. We're not
Yeah.
mixing them together, right? You're either
Okay, that makes
managing it
sense.
with yeah.
All right. Well, I know it is really late for you, and maybe you got to get back to family responsibilities. I do want to just give a shout out to Spacelift and what you guys have done for the community. We'd be in a lot of trouble if it wasn't for Spacelift. So thank you for all that you do for Open Tofu and the developers that you're sponsoring there and paying it forward. I appreciate it. Thanks, Martin, for also coming on the show today.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you all for listening. Have a good one.
Yeah, take care. All right, everyone. So we're back to regular office hours format. Happy to continue this conversation or talk about anything else. I don't have too much in the way of announcements today. Just was a couple things here can bring up. Yeah, so elephant in the room. Yeah, AWS went down. It can't be DNS. It couldn't possibly DNS. It'd be DNS. It was DNS. Don't know too much of the root cause of that outage yet. Anybody know more? Something tied to the outage affected, I guess, DynamoDB endpoints, and because DynamoDB is a foundational service of like many of the things in AWS, and then any other customer relying on DynamoDB, that caused a cascading failure of catastrophic proportions in US East 1, like always. Anyone else have more to that to add? All right. The other announcement was just that there's now a AWS EC2 capacity manager. If you are using reserved instances or reserved capacity reservations, you can now see how well you're utilizing that in real time on a dashboard. That's all I got. Anybody have something they want to discuss today? Anything caught your attention?
Yeah, the Spacelift Intent caught our attention, I guess.
For sure. Yeah, what do you think about it, Bogdan? Did it pique your interest?
I'm curious why the day one cannot be covered. What limitation was the team facing that they are only focusing on day zero?
I think it's crawl, walk, run, right? And managing expectations. I think we as engineers also have a habit of sometimes jumping on the new shiny object. And overall, like the long-term ramifications and implications of this are not yet understood. So I think it's just managing expectations. I don't think that it's probably that you can't do it, but we don't know. No. I think it's really interesting. Especially two things clicked with me. The refactoring thing, where you could even take an estate currently managed with Terraform and rethink about it, how to break it up into smaller pieces and export that to small components that can be managed separately. Or the other thing was the real-time, like the propensity to use it as a real-time graph database. If you're using it primarily, it doesn't solve the problem where if you're still using classic Terraform, how can you see like the state in a graph database? That's still not solved. But this idea of replacing the Terraform core with something like this, I think that's interesting.
And I'm curious if they also tested with different providers or only with AWS.
Right. Yeah. We should have asked. Yeah. What providers have they
I
tested?
wanted to ask, but I don't have the time.
Yeah. Yeah. But the way he describes it is it's just piggybacking on existing Terraform providers.
Yeah,
And
so it should work.
it should work, right? Because it's just RPC calls to those providers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Authentication, authorization. There are a lot of things there. I will look into their code to see what they have. It's very interesting. Yeah. And as for AWS Outage, I know they are still working on it. So I'm not sure it's fixed entirely.
What was that? Oh, you said I couldn't hear.
About the AWS outage, I think they're still working on
really
different regions. They are saying everything is okay, but we had to reboot a bunch of nodes today. A bunch of lambdas are still hanging. So yeah, I think there are still some under services that are not available to the public that are still affected by recovery of the system, basically.
It's interesting. They have it also on their main Amazon.com domain, their status page. Hasn't everybody learned now you don't do that?
One interesting thing is that in our company, we are using Jamf Cloud, and I wasn't able to log into my laptop. So.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, because an interesting day. What can I say?
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, talking points we can cover today?
Maybe just something really quick.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey. So the topic of SOPs came up again, just with some folks, and I was curious. Now with Atmos, now you've got the new Auth stuff coming in. Are you at all still looking at supporting SOPs, or do you recommend SOPs with Atmos at this point? Because I know it should be a data source at some point, right?
Yeah, well, so it's a great question for conversation as well. So a couple things. So lots of PRs. I don't know that we've let's see what's been published so far. Yeah, so we have we'll be cutting a release in the next day or so, but what we've done is release Atmos Auth. Atmos Auth is a fresh take on how to do authentication on the command line with your services, so you can access AWS, Google, GitHub, all of these things from the command line with a secure identity. And we made it pluggable, we made it extensible, we made it support keychains, we made it support, the first version only supported your system keychain, but now in the version coming out later on this week, we added support for file-based keychains. And that opens up the possibility of using keychains securely, whether it's across OS boundaries, like on your Mac to a Linux container, or whether it's in your CI pipelines accessing that keychain, that would be possible. Now, that's on the authorization side. Now, the other problem is secrets. And the main reason we haven't added secrets yet natively into Atmos, officially at least, many people are using the things we have for secrets, is masking. Is that when you have a lot of commands that are designed to show you what your configuration looks like describe config, describe stack, describe component, and if those have access to your secrets, then you're going to want to not show those on the command line or in CI when you output them, and you can only do that securely if you have some sort of masking in place. So, GitHub Actions, the way it works, like if you define a secret, GitHub at the platform level knows that secret. And if it sees that secret string in any of the output, it masks it, reducing the likelihood of exfiltration, accidental or deliberate. So we need to do the same thing in Atmos, that if we start accessing or providing the ability to access secrets easily within Atmos, that we don't give users the foot gun where they start leaking secrets in build logs and things like that.
And maybe not even locally, but running in another, like say GitHub action or whatever else. Yeah, I can see how that's really important.
So what we want to do about that is, and we're working there. So lots of small incremental improvements to Atmos over the past month, getting our way there, getting our error handling straight, getting our performance tracking in place so we can optimize the performance of Atmos, refactoring pieces of Atmos into smaller testable pure functions that we can test, introducing mocks all across the board so we can increase our test coverage. And where we're going with this is next overhauling how we handle output and creating basically a way for Atmos internally to handle output always consistently in a way that's secure, that automatically downgrades if there's no TTY attached, that automatically masks the outputs. And once we have that in place, now we can start to talk about how we support secrets as a first class primitive maybe within Atmos. And whether we support SOPs or multiple mechanisms hasn't been determined exactly. What would be really helpful would be to know what kind of secrets people plan or like what do you want to put in SOPs that you would use within Atmos? And that would help inform kind of the direction we take on that.
That makes sense. From what I've seen, I would imagine it's your basic programmatic access as a bare minimum. So not using a password, but say long bearer tokens and things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
would it be like integration
secret
secrets
URLs.
maybe, like if you need a Datadog key or if you need some other.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to support that one way or another. I know it comes up all the time with our Terraform state functions and our store functions that users want to have it for secrets. We just advise against it until we solve the data masking issue.
Okay, makes sense.
But a pre-announcement for the next release. So the current release of Atmos is 1.195.0. We'll do another demo on Atmos Auth soon. Now that once we cut the next release, lots of polish going into this. Some of the things that we've added into the next version of Atmos Auth is the ability to list your identities, the ability to launch the AWS Web Console for your given identity, the ability to start a shell that is scoped to a particular identity so you don't accidentally work in production when you're just in dev. So your identity is scoped to that shell on your terminal. We also did add one other command this past week called version list. So we always had the version command in Atmos. Now, if you want to check, once you upgrade, you want to check what the latest versions are and what the release notes are. You don't need to even open up your browser or anything. You can just run the Atmos command, Atmos version list, and it'll show you the latest versions. And you can run Atmos version show, and it'll show you a markdown rendering of the release notes for that version. So you can decide if you want to upgrade or not. So that went out with Atmos version. We have a lot of other things planned coming out in Atmos. Can't give an ETA on it. I would say within the next month or so, I would expect things like native ability to update your vendoring sources, provided that you're using GitHub sources. We're not going to support every possible option like OCI, etc. So if you're using GitHub to vendor, the ability to update your sources for that, the ability to view a diff between two versions of a component and seeing that diff easily so you can understand the impact of making those changes. Support for a GitHub provider with Atmos Auth so that you can get short-lived credentials when you're working with GitHub, so you don't have to always have a forever token on your laptop. You can just get a short-lived one when you're using GitHub. So a nice little security enhancement there. This will also support GitHub apps. So if you want to use GitHub apps with Atmos Auth, you can do that as well. That's really cool. Also, if you are using Terraform to manage GitHub and your Terraform and you need a GitHub app to manage, therefore, GitHub, Atmos can handle that authentication natively to exchange the secret for a bearer token. Dev container support. So this is a commitment to continuing to support dev containers. We use something called geodesic at Cloud Posse. We want to support that more natively built into Atmos as a dev container. So initial work has begun on supporting geodesic as a dev container or any dev container natively in Atmos. What's cool about that is when you combine that with the Atmos Auth, you can now launch a container with an identity to run commands. So it's a secure way of maybe sandboxing something that you're working on.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that'll be very nice.
Yeah, I've been working more with dev containers now, and it would be nice to have better solutions for AWS Auth on there. And there are ones on there, by the way. I know before anybody says something, yeah, they have several, but they are opinionated. So
the way Atmos Auth is going to handle it is nice. So you handle all the authentication natively on your host machine. The dev container has a directory mounted on it with your AWS config and credentials that's managed by Atmos. So now you can automatically use your host credentials inside the container if you want to. Damien?
Hey guys, sorry, this is my first time joining this call. I was just out of curiosity, do you guys use Tailscale at all?
You know, a lot of our customers have used Tailscale over the years. I think we have a Tailscale component laying around somewhere. We don't personally use it too much. There might be others here on the call that have more experience. I think Jeremy might have used it.
Oh, okay. I just had a question. I'm looking at the SSH feature in that, and I'm wondering how that actually gets proxied through Tailscale, and if you have to open up ACLs or security rules to open up port 22, or it's just some sort of magically proxied through Tailscale, because it looks like Tailscale handles the host key and the private keys as well too for SSH. And I'm just wondering like what the security implementations is on that as well as too. So is anyone can answer that question or give me some insight, it would be great.
I don't want to give wrong information, so
Yeah, it's my first rodeo with Tailscale, and I haven't dove in. Like I said, like some weekend I'll take 2 or 3 hours and play around with it and learn it.
here's
yeah,
just great things about it. Super easy to get started for those who try.
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't used it for SSH, unfortunately, but I have used it for other things. I know that you can manage services that are detected on different hosts, which is kind of nice. But haven't actually used it for SSH now.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Sure. Welcome to Office Hours.
All right, thanks. I'll be here next week too.
Oh, cool. Did you catch the session on Spacelift Intent?
I did not know.
Ah, you missed it. Okay. All right. Well, we are at time for today, everyone. Thanks for joining another episode of Cloud Posse's Office Hours. We'll be back next week at the same time, same place. The recording of today's session will be posted on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/cloudposse. Check it out in a few hours. If you ever are interested in getting a little bit more help, especially if you're using AWS, Atmos, or any of our open source modules that we provide at Cloud Posse, we do provide commercial support. You can find that at cloudposse.com/support. If you are just getting started with our community, you can register for these live office hours at cloudposse.com/office hours. As I mentioned earlier, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/cloudposse, where you can subscribe and join our Slack team, where we discuss current events, things that we discuss here on office hours, as well as we have channels for Atmos and Terraform, where users ask questions about like Cloud Posse's open source. So go to cloudposse.com/Slack to register for that. Thanks everyone for your time today. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you forgot to ask a question, post it in the Office Hours channel in our Slack community, and we'll see if Marcin can answer that for you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.